Hello, this is Laurence, your host of The Place Inside. Tonight we have a real interesting program for you as we're continuing our series about remote viewing. I'm going to give you a lot of information, a lot of exciting things to do, and let's get right down to it now. First, when you heard me say last week that you should visualize white light coming out in your exhalations, some of you may have said, is this the Laurence Gallian that wrote the book Beyond Duality, The Art of Transcendence, in which he writes about thesis, antithesis, and synthesis? In other words, is this the Laurence Gallian that talked to us about the Ob and Ode, the Ida and Pingala, the Yin and the Yang? Yes. So how does that work, you might ask? Where is the opposite force to the white light? Now we get to talk about some really interesting stuff, because I am not going to call the gases that you exhale dark or evil. I am not going to tell you to visualize your exhalation as dark, foul, and or bad. Aren't we going back to the 19th century with that kind of talk when they used to tell people that their bodies produce filthy smells and excrement and so forth? The evil alien warlords have nothing to do with your exhalation. For instance, there are not good radio waves and bad radio waves. When you breathe, first take light, then you give light as you exhale. That's it. Now, as your next step, we're going to combine your mantra and your breathing practices. You should combine saying your mantra with your breathing exercises. Breathe in, fill your lungs to the max, and then add your mantra to the breathing exercises you are already doing. Do it in the morning, after lunch, and after dinner. Do it right before you fall asleep. Let the practice of saying your mantra in coordination with your breathing become so natural that you are cleansing your system while saying the mantra. This will help to put you in tune with the universe as you begin the next process. You might be getting tired of me talking about mantras, but if something is worth doing, it's worth doing right. And I know you want to learn how to remote view. Think about your mantra. As we discussed, a mantra might be one word or it could be a phrase. What I want you to do is think of how many syllables there are in your mantra. Why? Because we're going to break it up so that part of it is said with your inhalation and part of it is said with your exhalation. The basic idea is this. You want to say half of your mantra when you inhale and half your mantra when you exhale. This is very simple if your mantra contains two syllables. Say, for example, if your mantra is the word power. And it is also simple if the amount of syllables comes out to an even number. Like, for example, power in me, or Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. Now, it is fine if your mantra has an odd number of syllables. Don't worry about that. In this case, simply divide the word or words up in such a way that it feels right to you. You can say as you inhale, La ilahe, and with your exhalation, illallah. Of course, when I use the word quote-unquote say, I am talking about saying the word silently in your head. Lastly, if you have a one-syllable mantra, such as now, simply repeat it twice, once on the inhalation and once on the exhalation. As we mentioned, we're working with the textbook Worker in the Light, written by George Noory and co-written by the great William J. Burns. And I wanted to tell you that Bill Burns has a terrific radio program that the past episodes are absolutely free to listen to. I know you have to pay some big bucks for some stations to listen to their archives. However, with William Burns or Bill Burns, his program that he does with his wife, it's absolutely free to listen to archive past episodes, and they upload them real quick. So before the end of this show, I will get you the information on that. We're also working with the book Ni Gung, The Secret Teachings of the Warrior Sages. This is by Costa Danaos, who is also the author of The Magus of Java. So we were talking before a little bit about the opposing force of the force that you are invoking. Well, all this is based on a millennia-old Chinese theory, but also incorporated today in today's theories on space and time. Taoist teachings tell us that the yin and and the yang are present in everything alive, and this is the qi energy. So there is the yang qi energy and there is the yin qi energy. For example, gravity is one of the several intrinsic yin energies in our world. Now let's take a look at yang energy for a little bit. Yang qi, first of all, is hot. And now Costa says in his book that the second characteristic of yang energy is that it wants to go up. He says that he can feel it rising in his body whenever he has done his exercises, but that it does not want to settle in his dantian. Remember, the dantian is that circular spiraling motion of energy that goes around your belly button area. But instead of wanting to settle into his dantian, remember, the yang qi energy wants to go up. So it wants to go to the top of the head and burst out from there if it can. And he mentions that he saw his teacher, John Chang, levitate from the ground, of course in complete defiance of the natural laws as science understands them right now. Now, Chinese sages have been saying for the last 3,000 years the yang energy exists in opposition to the yin. And if gravity is yin qi, what is the yang qi? Well, Costa, his opinion is that yang qi must be a force correlated to solar nuclear fusion. And this force that fuels the sun fuels our life on Earth as well. I have often spoken to you about how the visible world that you see around you is a perfect learning tool to understand the subtle world. The universe has proved itself many times to be a fractal in nature. It is therefore logical to assume that a force existing macrocosmically would also exist microcosmically inside our own being. Gravity is the force in the universe that wants all matter to collapse into a single mass and ultimately into one singularity. That is to say, gravity is the force that seeks to compact space and time into a single massive black hole. The intrinsic yin qi must be related to the force of gravity. It is this dynamism that absorbs energy and sends it into the, as John Chang put it, the nowhere. Macrocosmically, the combat between the two forces of yin and yang define the nature of reality. Microcosmically, their interaction fuels our life force. When we look at the electromagnetic spectrum as a whole, we find that two forms of emissions from the sun are able to penetrate to the surface of the earth undiminished: visible light and radio waves. Perhaps there is something inherent in radio frequency emissions under natural law that allows their propagation through the human body. When you think about all the different radio shows right now that are passing through every cell of your body, it is amazing. Every single radio show on the AM and FM dial right now is passing through every cell of your body. Now, Costa concludes by saying, quote, "I believe this, in turn, will lead to the unified field theory so dearly coveted by modern scientists," unquote. In my book, Beyond Duality, The Art of Transcendence, I spent a long time exploring the various different names given to qi as well as to the yin and the yang. Both the yin qi and the yang qi behave as both particle and wave phenomena. Indeed, it would be no stretch of the imagination to state boldly that qi has mass. The appellations given by ancient cultures around the world to the term bioenergy, for example, qi, ruach, spiritus, prana, we could go on, but they all refer to a vapor-like phenomenon. The Taoist sages of old have taught us that everything alive must have both the yin and yang energies coursing in parallel through their bodies. We spoke in the past about my reluctance to talk about science in my books because oftentimes when you read a book from around the 1900s and the person is writing about science and you realize the various strides forward that science has made, it makes the book seem somewhat quaint. But more and more, we are becoming sophisticated in the sense that we can open our minds to what they were saying. And instead of trying to laugh and say, oh, that word is an old-fashioned, quaint word, instead open your intuition and feeling center to what they are trying to convey. We should not, in our arrogance, dismiss the knowledge of the past, even going back to the ancient past, to primitive man, as quaint superstition, for in doing so, we dismiss a major part of ourselves. We must never forget that those men and women are our ancestors, and that they chose to live the way they did for millennia. We should not erase for good the forgotten side of ourselves, simply so that we may be better controlled by those who seek our servitude. Yes, they want us to laugh at those great men and women from 4,000-5,000 years ago, even from 100 years ago. So the system of breathing is this, as follows. First, get your deep breathing going, okay? Get the inhale and exhale going profoundly. And I want to urge you, if you are alone, practice this with your mouth wide open. Open it as wide as possible. This is direct from Wilhelm Reich, okay? Open the mouth, let the jaw drop, completely relax the jaw, and breathe as profoundly and deeply as possible. So get that breath going. Second, number 2, add the breathing of the light coming in and out of you. The I inhale light, I exhale light. Okay? So as you're doing this deep, wide open mouth breathing, see the light coming into you and then the light being distributed out of you towards all of nature, towards all of humankind around you. And then third, or number 3, finally add the mantra. So first we start with the deep breathing. After you have that going, add to the breathing the light coming in and out of you, and finally add the mantra. So then you will have all 3 going simultaneously. Now, of course, you can't do the wide open mouthed breathing when you're in public. That is absolutely okay. Be more subtle about it. And you can even breathe through your nose. That's fine. Just keep the deep breathing going. Also, as I advise you in my book, Beyond Duality, The Art of Transcendence, which, by the way, I have a little commercial here. I have been told that New Falcon on December 17th, approximately, is going to release the 2nd edition of Beyond Duality, and I have written a gigantic afterword to this 2nd edition of Beyond Duality. This afterword is at least half the size of the original book, Beyond Duality. So, but anyway, as I advise in my book, it is a wise idea to have a magical buddy. This kind of work is really best done with a partner or a friend. If you're lucky enough to have a group of friends to start exploring remote viewing and all the other things that we've been talking about, that would be fabulous. You see, more and more, you're going to need someone to compare notes with, someone to travel to various locations with, and eventually to go to a location while you are at another location. Remote viewing him or her. Don't despair if you can't find someone to work with, or if you are a person who likes to do things by him or herself, or if you're just naturally shy. There are ways also to work with this. If you are really adventurous, I suggest you start what's called a meetup group. If you don't know what this is, just go on Google Meetup Group and read about it. It's a fabulous thing. Or start a Facebook group, and you will attract like-minded people. Meetup groups work. I had one in St. Louis, and it definitely put me in touch with some wonderful people. And I'm also getting to know some folks in Guatemala through a Facebook group. So go for it. Get yourself a magical buddy or group of buddies to work with. I promised you that I would get you the information about Bill Burns' great program. It's called Future Theater. Future Theater, and it's on the Inception radio network. So you can Google either Future Theater and Bill Burns. His last name is spelled B as in boy, I, R as in Robert, N as in Norman, E, S as in Sam. Bill Burns, Future Theater on the Inception network. And like I said, it's completely free. The shows are long, and many of them are extremely fascinating because, you know, Burns is just an encyclopedia of ufology. And I also wanted to say that the books that we're working with are just jumping off points that I am adding a huge amount of my personal knowledge. The two books that I have written, the new edition, the afterword to Beyond Duality, and all the many lectures that I have given across the United States and in various parts of the world. All right, so now while you're doing your practicing with the breathing, I am now going to start to add some of the more, you might say, actual remote viewing techniques to this. But remember, the whole purpose of the whole breath exercise is to get you in tune so that you can travel to these places. If you leave out all that breath work that I gave you, none of this other stuff is going to work, all right? But here we go. The first exercise I want you to do is just to start thinking to yourself, what does the future hold in store? Just think about that for yourself. I mean, every time you open up a fortune cookie in a restaurant, you want to know what the future has in store for you. Take this question more and more deeply. For example, what does the future hold in store for us in that house in that picture over there? Or what am I looking for from the future, and where will I be able to find it? What does my intuition tell me about what I will find out today? Okay? Ask yourselves those questions. When you wake up in the morning, ask yourself, what's in store for me today? This will get your juices flowing in the right direction where we want them to flow. Now, if you have some friends that you can work with, you can start playing a game. What you can do, I'm sure you've all seen open house signs in front of various homes. When people are selling their homes, they have a open house. It's usually on Saturday and or Sunday. Now, drive around your neighborhood and find one of these open house things. And again, if you have a friend, it's really great to do this with him or her. Talk about what do you think that house is going to look like on the inside, because you are actually going to travel to that house on Saturday. So I want you to go around the neighborhood, look for an open house or even an apartment for rent. Call up the landlord, say you're interested in seeing the apartment, or if it's a house, call up the realtor if you have to. But sometimes it just says open house. You just walk right in. And with your friend, before you walk in, talk about in detail, what do you think you're going to see and find in that house or apartment? The trick is to see if your visits actually satisfied with your intuitions what you're going to find on that particular outing. Just try to visualize in your mind what you think could be found in the house. Now, there is a direct connection, and this goes back to my Wiccan studies. Some of you may know that I am a Wiccan priest. There is a direct connection between the imagination and psychic viewing, or if you want to put it another way, universal consciousness, however you want to phrase it. Therefore, do not at all hinder or reject anything that may come into your mind as you're visualizing what might be in this house that you are about to walk into. And it'd be nice to have a pad and pencil and just write down anything that comes to you. Don't reject anything, please. You have to give your mind this sense that it has your permission to speak freely. You have to give your unconscious, or what people call the right brain, the feeling that it is okay for it to tell you things, and that you are not going to respond with, oh, that's silly, or that's ridiculous, that's a bunch of crap, I don't believe that, or how could that possibly happen? Because the unconscious is like a child, and if you entertain it with very interesting things, bright, shiny things, music, so forth and so on, it responds. But if you yell back at it like a mean step-parent or something, then it's going to withdraw back into its shell, and it's not going to communicate communicate with you because it's afraid of you. Another exercise along these lines is what you can do, again, by yourself if you're a loner, but if you have some friends, what you do before you go out driving looking for an open house on a Saturday, decide together what you are going to find. In other words, perhaps you can say to yourselves, all right, we are going to find a house that has an herb garden in back, okay? Now, then just start driving and stop at the first open house you see and go inside and go look and see if you can find that herb garden. And you're going to get better and better at this the more you do it. And it's going to be a lot of fun. Let me tell you, it is a lot of fun. Or you can say, we're going to find a house with a waterfall in it, okay? And, some people have some small waterfalls. Some people have gigantic waterfalls in their home. And you can also challenge yourself and make things even more obscure and less likely to find, like say a model of an old biplane from the turn of the century, something like that. All right, I'm going to wind up with another series of exercises that will really help you tune into your intuition. Take a paper and pencil and give yourself lots of room to write. This is very important. Don't give yourself a tiny little piece of paper and start scribbling smaller and smaller. Get yourself as much paper as possible and just spread it out and write freely. Okay, lots of room to write. Put the pencil down and begin asking yourselves questions out loud, one at a time, before writing down the answer. Ask about your future, your love life, your fondest desire. Ask specific questions for which you can provide specific answers. Then, after each question, pick up the pencil with your opposite hand, okay? Your non-dominant hand. Your left hand if you're a righty, and your right if you're a lefty, and write down the answer. Look at what your opposite hand, freed from the constraints of the logical side of your brain, is telling you. But this is only the beginning. Next, hold the pencil in your opposite hand over the paper. Now, with the pencil poised above the paper, ask yourself a question out loud. This time, a substantive, meaningful question that can be answered in a sentence or two. The difference here is that the other side of your brain, the non-logical side, will be the brain asking all the questions. Don't censor them. Let your non-logical brain do all the talking. Now, without thinking about it too much, write out the answers to each question. Keep doing this, asking yourself more and more meaningful questions, requiring more and more insightful answers, and go on for at least an hour or so. Above all, regardless of the nonsense that you see on the paper, don't analyze yourself. Don't tell yourself that what you're writing is stupid or that it makes you afraid. Just let it flow. Let your voice speak the question and let your opposite hand write down the answers. What you'll probably find as you answer the questions is that your answers are coming from a different part of you. They are not the standard answers you get when you think about things. The most revealing answers are the ones that you don't concentrate on, but those that come as you concentrate on holding the pen or pencil. Now, here's something that is really, really exciting. One of the most revealing things about this exercise is that the answers will be completely honest. Only the logical brain can lie. The non-logical brain that governs your opposite hand can never lie because dissembling is a logical and cultural function. Therefore, ask yourself what you really want, really feel, and really believe. Ask yourself, what do I really want? What do I really feel about this or that? And what do I really believe about this or that? The answers you will get are what you really want, really feel, and really believe. Your heart will be speaking, and your intuition about who you are and what you will become is already in place. Mind and matter are essentially the same. The field experienced subjectively is the mind. Objectively, it is the world of material objects. So that should help you with your remote viewing. The world is non-material. It is composed of energy fields, which come from one underlying unmanifest field, space-time time are part of this field. But this unmanifest field is what you are getting in touch with your breathing, light, and mantra. Listen to this.